So, I don't really know where to start, but things with my wife have been feeling off for the past few months. We've been married for 7 years, no kids, just us and our dog, Charlie. And honestly, things have always been good between us, or so I thought. I'm not the suspicious type, and I've never been the kind of guy to track my wife's every move or anything like that. But lately, it's like there's been this distance. It all started when she started using a ride service for work. She works about 30 minutes away, and since her car's been in the shop for ages, she's been using this Uber guy regularly. She's told me about him a few times, just in passing. His name's Rick, 48M, and she made him sound like this laid-back, older guy with a chill vibe. I didn't think anything of it. We're all friendly with people we see a lot, right? But then, she started taking longer rides with him, even when she didn't have to go to work. It became a routine, coffee runs, errands she insisted on doing alone. Sometimes she wouldn't even tell me she was out until I called her, and she'd say, "Oh, I'm just grabbing a latte. Be home soon." Weird, but okay. I wasn't about to accuse her of anything crazy over some random drives with a guy who probably just wants to make a buck. Lately, though, she's been getting more and more secretive. The other day I asked if she wanted to go out for dinner, and she said she was meeting a friend for a drink instead. No problem. But when I asked who, she paused for a second too long before saying, "Oh, you don't know her. It's someone from the gym." She's never mentioned any gym friends before, but I let it go. No reason to start a fight over something so small, right? But now, it's like every time I suggest we do something together, she has some excuse. She's either too tired, or busy with work, or hanging out with friends. And those rides with Rick? They've gotten more frequent. She even joked once that Rick knew more about her life than I did. I laughed it off then, but now, I'm not so sure. There's more to this story, but honestly, it feels like I'm in some twisted movie right now. I'm not the jealous type, but something's going on here. I can feel it. Anyway, just wanted to get this off my chest. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but part of me wonders if I should start paying closer attention to what she's really up to. Something feels wrong, and I can't shake it. Anyone been in a similar situation? What did you do when your gut told you something was off? Okay, so I wasn't planning on updating so soon, but things escalated way quicker than I expected. After my last post, I started paying closer attention to my wife's behavior, and surprise, more red flags. She's been texting more than usual, and she's become super protective of her phone. Normally, we don't have any issues with privacy. We've always had open access to each other's phones, but now, she takes hers everywhere. I'm talking to the bathroom, to the kitchen, even to bed. Last night, I casually asked her if she wanted to watch a movie after dinner. She seemed annoyed and snapped, "I'm going out with friends." I asked her who, and she rolled her eyes and said, "You don't know them. They're work friends." Okay, sure. Work friends. So I suggested we hang out after, and she snapped back with, "Why are you being so clingy all of a sudden? It's just a drink, not a big deal." Red flag, right? She's never called me clingy before. I let it slide and pretended I wasn't bothered, but something didn't sit right with me. I decided to call her bluff. A few hours later, after she left for her so-called drinks, I texted her asking if she could pick up some stuff on her way home. She didn't reply for over an hour, and when she finally did, her excuse was ridiculous. She said she couldn't stop because the bar is out in the middle of nowhere. Which made no sense because she told me she was going to a spot downtown. I asked her if she was sure, and she snapped back with, "Why are you questioning me? Jesus, can I have one night to myself?" It was obvious she was lying. Her story didn't add up, and her defensiveness just made it worse. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her Uber history while she was out. Guess what? She wasn't at the bar. She was with Rick, her Uber guy, and not for the first time. She'd been taking rides with him way more than she let on. I'm talking morning rides, late-night drives, and even a few random midday trips. What the hell were they doing all this time? I'm trying to wrap my head around this. She lied straight to my face about where she was, and I've got a strong feeling it wasn't just an innocent ride. She's clearly spending more time with this guy than she's admitted, and I don't know what to think anymore. I haven't confronted her yet. I'm still figuring out how to approach this without blowing up. But now, I feel like an idiot for not seeing this sooner. There's definitely something going on, and I'm starting to think I've only scratched the surface. What would you guys do if you were in my shoes? Should I confront her now, or wait until I've got more proof? So, after the whole Uber history reveal, I decided I couldn't sit around and wait for more lies. I needed to know what was really going on. I know it's not the most mature move, but I decided to follow her. I had to see it with my own eyes. Yesterday, she told me she had yoga class after work. Funny thing is, she hasn't mentioned yoga in months, and suddenly, she's all about it. I played it cool, kissed her goodbye, and waited for her to leave. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I got into my car and kept my distance. She drove for about 10 minutes before I saw it, Rick's taxi, parked a block away from our house. She didn't even head toward the yoga studio. She hopped right into the back of his car, and they took off. I followed them for a while, trying not to freak out or get too close. They went to a coffee shop first, stayed for about 20 minutes, and then they left. I figured that was it, just another, innocent, coffee trip, right? Wrong. They drove around for a while, aimlessly, and I was about to give up and go home when they pulled into a parking lot behind a hotel. A freaking hotel. My heart dropped. They sat there for a few minutes, talking or whatever, but then I saw it. She leaned over the seat and kissed him. And not just a quick peck, full on, making out with this guy in the back of his taxi like it was nothing. My hands were shaking, and I swear I almost lost it right then and there. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All those errands, all those drinks with friends, and it was Rick the whole time. I didn't even wait to see if they went into the hotel. I couldn't. I was furious, but more than that, I felt like a complete idiot for trusting her this long. I drove home, trying to figure out what to do next, and part of me wanted to confront her right away. But another part of me knew that if I walked in there guns blazing, she'd just lie again. She's good at it too. When she got home later, she acted like nothing was wrong. Came in smiling, gave me a kiss, and asked if I wanted to order takeout. I don't know how she does it, acting all innocent after being with another guy. I played along, but now I know for sure she's been cheating. The question is, how do I blow this thing wide open? I need her to admit it, and I need to figure out how to deal with this mess without losing my mind. I'm still reeling from everything I saw. What would you guys do in this situation? Should I confront her now that I know, or keep gathering more evidence? Alright, so I didn't sleep much last night. I kept replaying everything in my head, the kisses, the lies, and the shock of seeing my wife with Rick. I knew I couldn't let this drag on any longer. I had to confront her. But how do you tackle something like this without it turning into World War III? This morning, I woke up and decided to be calm, cool, and collected. I wanted to give her the chance to come clean before I threw all my cards on the table. When she came downstairs, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, trying to mask my racing heart. Hey, how was yoga? I asked, keeping my tone light. She smiled and said it was great, and that she was really starting to get into it. I didn't say anything and just sipped my coffee, waiting for her to spill something. But she didn't. So I decided to lead with a gentle probe. Have you been seeing a lot of your friend Rick lately? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression changed instantly. Why are you asking about him? He's just a driver, why does it matter? I took a deep breath. Just curious, since you've been using his services a lot. I mean, how often does one person need a ride? She narrowed her eyes, clearly on the defensive. I don't know, maybe he's just more reliable than other drivers. Why does this even concern you? That's when I decided it was time to reveal what I knew. I saw you last night. With him. In the back of his taxi. Her face went pale. For a moment it looked like she was trying to process what I had just said. Then, the hysteria kicked in. You're lying. You must have misunderstood. I can explain. I wasn't prepared for her to go straight into attack mode. Explain what? I shot back. How you were making out with him in the back of a car? That's your explanation? She started pacing, frantically denying everything, claiming it was all innocent. We were just talking. You're being ridiculous. Her voice climbed higher, and I could see her unraveling. At this point, I was angry, but more than that, I was disgusted. This isn't just talking, and you know it. You've been lying to me for months. You think I'm going to believe you? What do you take me for? She snapped back. You're being paranoid. I'm just trying to have a life. You wouldn't understand. Understand what? That you're cheating on me? Because that's what it looks like. She started crying, a mix of frustration and hysteria. You're making this worse. I didn't mean to hurt you. I stood my ground, not letting her guilt trip me. You already did hurt me. You've hurt me more than you realize. I can't keep living like this. I'm done with the lies. In that moment, everything shifted. I realized I had the power to make a choice, either stick around for more of her bullshit or walk away. I felt a surge of clarity amidst the chaos. I'm done. I need to think about what I want, and I'm seriously considering filing for divorce. Her eyes widened in disbelief, but I didn't wait for a reaction. I turned and walked out, leaving her to stew in her mess of lies and broken trust. Now I'm left here wondering what comes next. I've never wanted a divorce. We were supposed to build a life together. But now, I feel liberated, even if a part of me is still hurting. What do you all think? Did I do the right thing? How do I even start this process? I've been quiet for a couple of days, trying to figure out my next steps and processing everything that's happened. After I confronted her, my wife fell silent. The dramatic freakout didn't last long. She seemed to retreat into herself, and the tension was palpable. It was almost worse than the screaming match. For the first time in years, our house felt like a stranger's home. I went through the motions, work, walking Charlie, cooking dinner, but everything felt hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in a surreal nightmare, one I had to wake up from. A few days later, she finally approached me. She seemed calmer, which worried me. Can we talk? She asked, her voice soft but shaky. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever came next. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, the space between us feeling like a chasm. I'm sorry for what happened. She started, but I cut her off. You're not sorry you got caught. You're sorry for how it looks. She flinched, and I could see the guilt wash over her face. No, that's not fair. I do feel bad. I just got lost. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought it was just harmless fun. Harmless? I shot back. You don't kiss someone like that unless there are feelings involved. You've been lying to me. I thought we were in this together. I know, and I messed up, she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. But can we fix this? I'll do anything to make it right. It stung to hear her beg, especially knowing she had a choice and she blew it. I took a deep breath, trying to sort through my emotions. I don't know if this is fixable. You shattered my trust. I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I need space. I don't know what I want right now. I'm seriously considering divorce. I can't just pretend this didn't happen. Her face twisted in desperation, and she started sobbing harder. Please don't say that. I love you. I made a mistake. Love doesn't betray, I replied, feeling colder than I ever thought I could. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. I can't be with someone who lies to me. It goes against everything we built. We sat in silence, her sobs echoing in the empty room. I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to leap or pull back. Finally, she whispered, What about Rick? Was it really just him? What if I ended things with him? I shook my head. It doesn't matter anymore. Even if you cut ties with him, how can I trust that you won't find another way to hurt me? You've already shown me your true colors. That night, I went to bed with a heavy heart, but I felt lighter too, as if a weight was being lifted. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. I wanted to be prepared for whatever came next, to take control of my life again. I know it won't be easy, but I refuse to be the one left in the dark. How do I even start talking to her about divorce? Is there a right way to go about this? Any advice would be appreciated. After a few days of gathering my thoughts and preparing myself emotionally, I finally found the courage to sit down with her and discuss divorce. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I knew it had to be done. I didn't want this dragged out any longer than necessary. I called her into the living room, trying to keep my demeanor calm and collected. She walked in, her eyes still a little puffy from crying, and I felt a flicker of sadness for what we once had. But that flicker was quickly snuffed out by the reality of the situation. Can we talk about where we're going from here? I started, my heart racing. She nodded, looking apprehensive. Is it about Rick? She asked, a note of desperation in her voice. It's about us, I replied, watching her face fall. I can't keep pretending everything is okay. I've been in touch with a lawyer, and I'm seriously considering filing for divorce. She gasped, and I could see the panic set in. Wait, you can't be serious. We can work through this. We've had tough times before. This is just another bump in the road. Not like this, I said, feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. This isn't just a bump. You chose to betray me, and that's something I can't come back from. I need to prioritize my own mental health. She shook her head vehemently, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I love you. I'll do anything. Just give me a chance to prove that I can change. Love doesn't involve betrayal, I countered, feeling my resolve strengthen. You've shown me who you really are, and I can't unsee that. I deserve better than a life filled with lies. Her voice turned bitter. So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away because of one mistake? You're being dramatic. Dramatic? I shot back. You've made this choice over and over again. This wasn't just a one-time slip. This has been ongoing, and I'm not going to sit here and let you minimize your actions. The atmosphere in the room shifted, growing heavier with every word. She slumped back against the couch, defeated. So what now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll be filing for divorce. We need to separate our lives and start moving on. I can't keep living in this limbo, and neither can you. I want to have a clean break. She nodded slowly, the fight leaving her. I guess I should have seen this coming. I messed up, and now I'm losing everything. I took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and heartbreak. You had a choice, and you made it. I'm sorry it has to end this way, but I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for someone who doesn't value it. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of our impending separation hanging between us. Finally, I stood up. I'll start the paperwork and let you know what comes next. I think it's best if we don't talk for a while. I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. As I closed the door behind me, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I could finally reclaim my life. I know it's going to be tough, but I refuse to let her betrayal define my future. How do I prepare for the next steps? Any tips on navigating this process smoothly? It's been a few days since our heart-wrenching conversation, and I've been navigating the aftermath with a mixture of resolve and sorrow. I officially filed for divorce yesterday. Just typing those words made it feel real, and honestly, it's terrifying but also liberating. I reached out to a lawyer who specializes in divorce cases, and she walked me through the process. It felt surreal discussing assets, possible alimony, and dividing our lives when just a few weeks ago, we were a normal couple. Now, I'm faced with the reality of untangling our shared life. I decided to keep it simple for now, no fighting over possessions or trying to hurt each other. I just want to move forward with as little drama as possible. I told my lawyer I'd like to try mediation, hoping it would help us reach an agreement without going through a nasty court battle. After filing the paperwork, I felt a mix of anxiety and relief. But then, the emotional weight hit me again. I started thinking about all the little things I'd miss. Our lazy Sunday mornings, the way she'd smile at me when she thought I wasn't looking, and the inside jokes we had that made our bond special. I realized I was mourning not just the relationship, but the dreams we had built together. I decided to take some time for myself. I went for long walks with Charlie, spent time with friends, and even started reading again, something I hadn't done in ages. It was a small way to reclaim my life and remind myself of the things that make me happy outside of our relationship. Meanwhile, she reached out a few times, but I kept my distance. I didn't want to get caught up in emotional games or her pleas to reconsider. I needed space to think and process everything. Each time she texted, I felt the temptation to respond, but I reminded myself of why I was doing this. Then came the moment I dreaded. She texted asking if we could meet to talk things through. I hesitated, knowing that meeting in person might open old wounds or spark false hope. But part of me felt like it might be important to have closure. After a day of going back and forth in my mind, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. As I drove there, my heart raced. Would this be a final chance for her to plead her case? Or would it be a necessary step toward closure? When I arrived, she was already there, fidgeting with her coffee cup, looking vulnerable yet determined. I took a seat across from her, and for a moment, we both just stared at each other. "Thanks for meeting me," she started, her voice shaky. "I just wanted to talk about what's happening. I know I messed up, and I'm sorry for how everything went down." "Yeah, you messed up," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "But this isn't just about an apology. You broke my trust in a fundamental way." She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know, and I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realized how much I took for granted. I could feel my walls rising again. It's too late for that. You had your chance, and now it's time for me to move on." Her expression shifted from sadness to frustration. "You're being so rigid. Can't we at least talk about our memories? About what we had?" I took a deep breath, holding back the emotions that threatened to spill over. What we had was real, but it's gone now. I need to focus on the future, not the past. We talked for a while longer, going back and forth about regrets, feelings, and what could have been. But every time she tried to steer the conversation toward reconciliation, I brought it back to the reality of our situation. As we wrapped up our conversation, she looked defeated but also slightly relieved. I realized that this meeting was essential for both of us, even if it didn't change anything. Leaving the coffee shop felt like shedding another layer of grief. I was moving forward, albeit slowly, but I was doing it on my own terms. Now I'm trying to find my footing in this new phase of life. Any advice on how to cope during this transition? What should I expect next? After my conversation with my wife, things settled into a strange rhythm. I felt a sense of relief from having shared my feelings, but the reality of the divorce paperwork loomed over me like a dark cloud. I knew I had to tackle the legal side of things head on, but honestly, I wasn't prepared for how overwhelming it would be. My lawyer provided a list of documents I needed to gather: tax returns, bank statements, proof of income, and anything related to our assets. It felt like digging up my entire life, piece by piece. Each document reminded me of what we had built together: the shared bank accounts, the trips we took, the investments we made. It was like revisiting the memories I was trying to escape. I spent hours sorting through files, trying to make sense of everything. Charlie stayed by my side, offering comfort with his presence. Every time I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me, I would take a break and walk him around the block. The fresh air helped clear my head, if only for a moment. After gathering the paperwork, I met with my lawyer again to discuss the next steps. She explained the mediation process and how we would need to agree on asset division, any potential spousal support, and more. I knew that would be another emotional hurdle, but I was determined to keep things as civil as possible. When the day of mediation finally arrived, I felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. We met at a neutral location, a conference room that felt sterile and cold. My lawyer and I arrived early, and as we waited, I caught sight of my wife walking in with her attorney. My heart raced. Seeing her brought back a flood of memories, some good, some bad. But I reminded myself why I was here, to finalize this chapter of my life. We exchanged awkward pleasantries, and then the mediator stepped in. She introduced herself and explained how the process would work. I appreciated her calm demeanor. It helped ease some of the tension in the room. As we started discussing assets, I felt a sense of detachment. It was like we were talking about strangers. My lawyer led the charge, outlining what I believed to be fair. I was still trying to stay respectful, but I could feel the weight of the betrayal lurking just beneath the surface. My wife seemed defensive at first, insisting on a few points that felt unreasonable. "I've put so much into this marriage," she argued. "I deserve compensation for that." I almost laughed at her audacity. "You're the one who threw it all away. Don't act like you're a victim here." The mediator stepped in to refocus the conversation, and we slowly started making progress. It was exhausting, but we managed to reach a tentative agreement on how to divide our shared assets. When we broke for lunch, I stepped outside to clear my head. I felt like I was walking through a fog, trying to find a way to breathe. I called a friend to vent, needing to process the whirlwind of emotions that were swirling inside me. "I just want this to be over," I admitted. "I'm tired of fighting over things that don't matter anymore." "You'll get through this," my friend reassured me. "Just keep your focus on what's ahead, not what's behind." After lunch, we returned to the mediation table. The conversation shifted to spousal support, and I braced myself for another round of emotional arguments. My wife claimed she needed support while she found a new job, which made my blood boil. "You're the one who put yourself in this situation," I shot back. "You can't expect me to support you after everything that's happened." Eventually, we settled on a modest arrangement, but it still felt like I was being taken advantage of. By the end of the day, we managed to hammer out an agreement, but it was bittersweet. As I walked out of the building, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I had survived the first big step in this process, but I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Now I'm trying to figure out how to rebuild my life after all this. How do I find my new normal? What should I focus on next? The mediation was a turning point, but it didn't magically fix everything. I left that building feeling like I had crossed the bridge, but the other side was still shrouded in fog. The agreement was just the beginning. I knew I had to start rebuilding my life. In the days that followed, I focused on self-care. I took Charlie for longer walks, started cooking more often, and even revisited hobbies I had neglected. I picked up my guitar again, strumming out chords that reminded me of simpler times. Music became a cathartic outlet, helping me process the emotions I was still grappling with. I also reached out to friends more frequently. They rallied around me, inviting me out for drinks, movie nights, and even hiking trips. I had forgotten how important social connections are, especially in tough times. Being around them helped me laugh again, even if it felt forced at first. Gradually, I felt the weight of loneliness lifting. I also started journaling more, documenting my thoughts and feelings. Writing became a safe space for me to vent and reflect without judgment. It helped clarify my emotions and allowed me to express things I couldn't say out loud. I realized how much I had bottled up over the years, and getting it all down on paper felt liberating. As the divorce process continued, I found myself doing a lot of research about life after divorce, how to cope, how to move on, and how to reinvent yourself. I stumbled upon online forums and support groups that were surprisingly helpful. Hearing stories from others who had walked similar paths gave me comfort and perspective. But there were still tough days. Some mornings, I would wake up feeling a heavy ache in my chest, missing the familiarity of my old life. I would glance at the empty side of the bed and feel a rush of grief. It was a constant reminder that my life had irrevocably changed. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I came across a post from my wife. She had shared a photo of herself smiling with friends, looking carefree. A wave of anger washed over me. How could she be so happy after everything? But then I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I was no longer responsible for her happiness. I needed to focus on my own journey, not hers. I decided it was time to start setting new goals for myself. I signed up for a painting class, something I had always wanted to try but never had the time for. It felt good to challenge myself creatively and meet new people in the process. Around this time, I also started thinking about my future, where I wanted to go, and what I wanted to achieve. I made a list of things I wanted to accomplish in the next year: travel somewhere I'd never been, take a cooking class, and maybe even try my hand at writing a short story. The more I focused on building my own path, the less I thought about the pain of the past. I began to feel a flicker of hope. As I continued this journey of self-discovery, I wondered if I should consider dating again. It felt like a distant thought, but maybe, just maybe, I could open myself up to new possibilities in the future. For now, I'm taking it one step at a time. Any tips on how to approach dating again when the time comes? How do I know I'm ready? As I immersed myself in new hobbies and focused on self-improvement, the idea of dating started to creep into my mind more often. I'd see couples out and about, and while a part of me felt a pang of longing, I also knew I needed to be cautious. I wasn't sure I was ready to dive back into the dating pool, but the thought of it was both exciting and terrifying. One weekend, while hanging out with a friend, we ended up at a local bar with live music. I found myself enjoying the atmosphere, laughter, music, and good conversation swirling around me. My friend nudged me playfully, pointing out a woman across the room who kept glancing in our direction. "You should go talk to her," he urged. My heart raced at the suggestion. The idea of approaching someone felt foreign. What if I froze up? What if I stumbled over my words? But I also felt a flicker of curiosity. What would it be like to connect with someone new? After a few minutes of debating with myself, I took a deep breath and decided to give it a shot. I walked over, introduced myself, and was pleasantly surprised at how easy the conversation flowed. Her name was Maya, and she was friendly and genuine, sharing stories about her recent travels and interests. We spent the rest of the evening laughing and exchanging stories, and by the end of the night, I found myself feeling lighter than I had in a long time. We exchanged numbers, and as I walked away, I felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. That night I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling. Could I really be ready to date again? My mind raced with questions. Was I emotionally available? Was I ready to let someone else in? The next few days passed, and I found myself overthinking everything. When Maya texted to suggest meeting up again, I hesitated. I wanted to say yes, but I worried about dragging my baggage into a new relationship. After confiding in a close friend, she reassured me. "You're allowed to date. You're not defined by your past. Just take it slow and be honest about where you're at." Taking her advice to heart, I texted Maya back and agreed to meet for coffee. Our second meeting felt like a continuation of our first, easy and enjoyable. We talked about our favorite movies, books, and dreams for the future. As the conversation flowed, I started to feel a shift inside me. Maybe I could allow myself to be open to new connections without forgetting what I had experienced. I could learn to embrace the uncertainty of dating again. Still, I was cautious. I wasn't ready to dive headfirst into anything serious. I made it clear to Maya that I was just getting out of a long relationship and wanted to take things slowly. She appreciated my honesty, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, we went on several casual outings, hiking, trying out new restaurants, and attending concerts. I found myself genuinely enjoying her company, and with each date, I realized I was beginning to let my guard down. One evening, while sitting on a park bench after a concert, I felt comfortable enough to share bits of my past with her, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and my journey toward healing. I was surprised by how easy it was to open up, and Maya listened attentively without judgment. "You're not your past," she said softly. "You're here now, and that's what matters. It's okay to take your time." Her words resonated with me. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something hopeful. I didn't know where it would lead, but I felt ready to explore this new chapter of my life. As I navigated this tentative relationship with Maya, I reflected on the lessons I was learning about vulnerability and resilience. I was beginning to see that it was possible to embrace the future while acknowledging the past. How do I keep this momentum going? What should I be mindful of as I continue dating? Any tips on maintaining balance and emotional health during this process? As I continued to see Maya, I realized that dating again brought its own set of challenges and joys. The excitement of new connections was exhilarating, but it also stirred up old anxieties. I found myself grappling with feelings of vulnerability that I hadn't faced in a long time. Maya was understanding and patient, which helped ease my worries. We had established a rhythm, our dates felt natural, and she brought a sense of joy that reminded me of what it felt like to connect with someone. But even with this comfort, I was still cautious. I often thought about my past, and how quickly things had turned sour in my marriage. One Friday evening, we decided to have a cozy night in, cooking dinner together. As we chopped vegetables and shared laughs, I felt a sense of ease. But as the conversation turned to relationships, I found myself treading carefully. "So, what do you look for in a partner?" I asked, trying to gauge her perspective. Maya paused, her expression thoughtful. "I want someone who's genuine, who can communicate openly. I've had my share of heartbreak too, and I believe trust is essential." Her words struck a chord. I realized that I wanted the same things: honesty, trust, and open communication. But the thought of fully trusting someone again felt daunting. I shared a bit about my experience, and she listened, nodding empathetically. "I know it's hard to open up after what you've been through," she said softly. "But you're not alone in this. I'm here for you." Her support meant a lot, but it also made me reflect on how much I still needed to heal. I had to be honest with myself about my feelings. The last thing I wanted was to project my unresolved pain onto someone who was genuinely interested in getting to know me. As our relationship progressed, I noticed that I was starting to feel more comfortable. We spent lazy weekends together, shared playlists, and even explored local art galleries. Each time we connected, I felt a little more at ease, but there were still moments of doubt. One evening, while watching a movie, I felt a wave of nostalgia hit me. It reminded me of similar nights with my ex-wife, and I found myself zoning out. Maya noticed and paused the film. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked gently. I took a deep breath. "Yeah, I just got lost in thought for a second. I'm still processing everything from my past, you know?" Maya smiled softly, understanding. "I get it. Just know that you don't have to rush into anything. I'm not going anywhere." Her reassurance gave me comfort, but I also felt a sense of urgency. I didn't want to hold her back or let my past interfere with our budding connection. I decided to communicate openly about my fears and feelings. The following week, I brought it up. "I really enjoy spending time with you, but I also want to be upfront about where I'm at emotionally. I'm still healing, and I don't want to complicate things." Maya took my hand, her expression sincere. "I appreciate you being honest. I'm here to support you, and I'm happy to take things slow. Let's just enjoy each moment." Her response made me feel heard and validated. I realized that this relationship didn't have to be defined by my past mistakes. I could allow myself to be present and enjoy the journey, even if it felt uncertain. As I continued to navigate my feelings, I also made it a point to prioritize my own emotional health. I kept journaling, reflecting on my experiences with Maya, and what I truly wanted from this new chapter. I wanted to approach this relationship with intention, so I set small goals for myself, like practicing vulnerability, communicating openly, and being mindful of any triggers from my past. Maya and I continued to build our connection, and I started to see glimpses of what a healthy relationship could look like. I felt hopeful, and that hope inspired me to keep pushing through the discomfort. How do I maintain this balance of vulnerability and emotional health as I continue dating? What are some strategies to ensure I don't let my past overshadow my present? Any tips would be greatly appreciated. As Maya and I continued to date, I found myself becoming more comfortable with the idea of vulnerability. The early days of our relationship had been filled with excitement, but now, it felt like we were slowly building something meaningful. I wanted to embrace this unknown territory, but I still carried remnants of caution from my past. One Saturday, we decided to take a day trip to a nearby beach. The sun was shining, and the atmosphere felt electric with possibility. As we strolled along the shore, the waves lapping at our feet, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The fresh air and warm sun felt rejuvenating, and I could see the joy in Maya's eyes as she collected seashells. "Isn't it beautiful here?" she asked, beaming at me. I nodded, but my mind began to wander. The scenery reminded me of vacations I had taken with my ex-wife. I felt a twinge of guilt. Was I fully present with Maya, or was I still holding on to ghosts from my past? Later, as we sat on the sand watching the sunset, I decided to address my thoughts. "You know, this place is amazing, but it makes me think about how different things were for me not too long ago," I admitted. Maya turned to me, her expression open and understanding. "It's okay to have those feelings. You're processing a lot right now." I took a deep breath, trying to articulate my thoughts. "I really enjoy our time together, but I sometimes catch myself comparing it to my past. I don't want to let those memories overshadow what we have." She reached for my hand. "You're here now with me. It's okay to acknowledge your past, but it doesn't define our relationship. We're creating our own memories, and that's what matters." Her words resonated deeply with me. It was a reminder that I didn't have to carry the weight of my past into my present. I could honor my experiences while still being open to new possibilities. After our trip, I made a conscious effort to focus on living in the moment. I began to look for ways to create our own unique experiences together, trying new restaurants, attending local events, and exploring new hobbies. With each outing, I felt more connected to Maya and less haunted by the shadows of my past. As we grew closer, I found myself wanting to share more of my life with her. I invited her to meet my friends, and we hosted a small gathering at my place. It felt like a big step, but I wanted her to see the people who supported me during my journey. When the night arrived, I was a bundle of nerves. I wanted everything to go smoothly. As our friends arrived, Maya fit right in, chatting and laughing with everyone. Seeing her interact with my circle made me realize how much I valued her presence in my life. Later, as we sat on my couch, exhausted but happy, I turned to her. "Thank you for being so amazing tonight. I'm really glad you were here." Maya smiled, her eyes shining. "I had a great time. Your friends are wonderful, and I can see how much they mean to you." That night, as we settled into bed, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. I realized that I was beginning to trust again, both in myself and in her. I could let my guard down, even if it felt vulnerable. However, I also knew that I had to be mindful of my emotional health as we continued to deepen our connection. I set a personal goal to check in with myself regularly, reflecting on how I was feeling and ensuring I was communicating openly with Maya about any worries or doubts that arose. As we navigated this new phase, I felt hopeful about what the future held. I reminded myself that it was okay to take things slow, and that building a solid foundation took time. With that in mind, I wondered how to keep fostering open communication and trust. What strategies can help ensure we continue to grow together while also addressing any challenges that may arise? Any advice on maintaining a healthy balance would be greatly appreciated. As Maya and I continued to build our relationship, I felt a growing sense of comfort and trust. However, I also understood that challenges were inevitable. The more we invested in each other, the more I realized how crucial it was to maintain open communication. One evening, while we were making dinner together, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Maya seemed a bit distracted, her thoughts elsewhere. I decided to address it. "Hey, is everything okay? You seem a little off tonight." She paused, putting down the spatula. "I guess I've just been feeling a bit overwhelmed with work and everything else going on. Sometimes I worry about whether I'm moving too fast in our relationship." Her honesty hit me like a wave. I appreciated her vulnerability but also recognized that it mirrored some of my own fears. I understand how you feel. I've been grappling with similar thoughts. It's a big adjustment for both of us, and it's okay to take our time. Maya nodded, her expression softening. I really like you, and I don't want to rush things. I just don't want to mess this up. Me neither, I replied, taking her hands in mine. But it's important that we talk about these feelings. Communication is key. We can navigate this together. That conversation opened the floodgates. We talked about our fears, our hopes for the relationship, and the importance of checking in with each other. It was a relief to express what we were both feeling, and it strengthened our bond. Over the next few weeks, we made it a point to have regular check-ins, even if they were just brief moments during our dates. We talked about what we enjoyed, what worried us, and how we felt about moving forward. It felt empowering to share our thoughts openly. However, as we grew closer, I also found myself grappling with the remnants of jealousy. I would occasionally catch myself feeling uneasy when she mentioned hanging out with her friends or attending events without me. It was an old wound from my past, and I knew I had to address it. One night, while watching a movie at her place, I decided to bring it up. I want to be honest about something. I sometimes feel a little jealous when I think about you spending time with other people. It's not a reflection of you, it's more about my insecurities. Maya turned to me, her expression understanding. Thank you for sharing that with me. It's totally normal to feel that way, especially after what you've been through. I want you to know that I'm committed to being open and honest with you. Her reassurance eased my anxiety a bit, but I knew I had to work through my feelings. I decided to reflect on the roots of my jealousy, reminding myself that it stemmed from past experiences, not from who Maya was as a person. To further combat these feelings, I focused on building my own confidence. I kept engaging in activities that made me feel good about myself, whether it was hitting the gym, pursuing my hobbies, or spending time with friends. I wanted to cultivate a sense of independence, knowing that a healthy relationship thrives when both partners feel secure in themselves. As time passed, I noticed a shift. My jealousy began to diminish, and I felt more secure in our relationship. Maya and I continued to communicate openly, checking in with each other and celebrating our small victories. Then came the day when we had our first major conflict. We had planned a weekend getaway, but at the last minute, I received an urgent work call that I couldn't ignore. I was frustrated and disappointed, feeling like I was letting her down. Maya, on the other hand, was understandably upset. I was really looking forward to this weekend. It feels like work is always coming between us. Her words stung, and I felt defensive. I didn't ask for this. I can't control when work emergencies happen. We both took a step back, realizing that emotions were running high. After a moment of silence, I suggested we take a break to cool down. I went for a walk, breathing in the fresh air to clear my head. After some time apart, I texted her, suggesting we sit down and talk things through. When we reconvened, we were both calmer. I took a deep breath and apologized for my reaction. I shouldn't have lashed out. I understand why you're frustrated, and I wish things were different. Maya responded. I'm sorry too. I know you didn't want to cancel. I just felt let down. It's hard when we're trying to make plans and they fall through. We talked openly about our feelings, recognizing that conflicts are part of any relationship. What mattered was how we navigated them together. By the end of the evening, we felt a renewed sense of connection, having tackled our first significant challenge. Through it all, I learned that growth comes from both the joys and the struggles. I felt grateful for the way we communicated and supported each other. Now, as we continue to build our relationship, I wonder how I can further strengthen our bond. What strategies can help us navigate future conflicts and deepen our connection even more? Any tips on fostering resilience as a couple would be invaluable. After navigating our first major conflict, Maya and I felt a renewed sense of commitment to each other. It was clear that challenges would arise, but we were learning how to face them together. I knew we needed to focus on fostering resilience and strengthening our connection. One evening, we decided to have a relationship check-in dinner at my place. I prepared her favorite meal, and we set the mood with candles and soft music. It felt important to create a safe space where we could express our feelings and discuss our relationship's future. As we sat down to eat, I opened the conversation. I think it's important for us to regularly check in on how we're doing. I want to make sure we're both feeling good about where we are and where we're headed. Maya smiled, clearly on board. Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. It's a chance for us to celebrate what's going well and address any concerns before they become bigger issues. We talked about our highs and lows over the past few weeks. I shared how much I appreciated her patience and support as I navigated my insecurities. She expressed gratitude for the way I had communicated my feelings, especially during our conflict. As we talked, I realized how crucial it was to celebrate our small victories. We had both made strides in communicating openly, and acknowledging that progress felt empowering. We decided to make it a habit to have these check-ins every few weeks, ensuring we stayed on the same page. During one of our check-ins, we also touched on our future. Where do you see us heading? I asked, curious about her thoughts. Maya took a moment to think. I really enjoy what we have right now, but I also see potential for something more serious down the line. I want to make sure we're both ready for that when the time comes. Her words made my heart race. I felt the same way, but the thought of diving into a more serious commitment also made me apprehensive. I reminded myself that it was okay to take things slowly. I'm open to that too. But let's keep communicating about it and make sure we're both comfortable with the pace. As we continued to navigate our relationship, I also recognized the importance of fostering fun and intimacy. I wanted to create joyful memories and deepen our emotional connection. I started planning spontaneous dates, picnics in the park, stargazing nights, and even trying out new activities like pottery classes together. One Saturday, we decided to take a day trip to a nearby city. We explored art galleries, tried street food, and laughed as we got lost wandering the streets. The shared adventure strengthened our bond, and I could feel the warmth of our connection growing deeper. However, I also knew that intimacy was more than just physical, it was about emotional vulnerability. During one of our cozy evenings at home, I decided to share some of my deeper fears about relationships. Sometimes I worry that I'll never fully trust someone again after what happened with my ex, I confessed. Maya listened intently, her gaze unwavering. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I understand that it's a process, and I'm here to support you. We can take our time, and I'm willing to work through those fears with you. Her understanding made me feel safe, and I realized how crucial emotional intimacy was in our relationship. I made it a point to continue being open about my feelings and to encourage her to do the same. As we spent more time together, I also wanted to ensure that we maintained our individual identities. I encouraged Maya to pursue her own interests, and I made time for my hobbies as well. We both agreed that a healthy relationship allowed for personal growth alongside shared experiences. However, I was still aware that unexpected challenges could arise. To prepare for those moments, I researched strategies for effective conflict resolution. I discovered techniques like active listening, using I statements instead of you statements, and finding common ground. I wanted us to be equipped to handle any difficulties with understanding and compassion. As we continued to build our relationship, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness about what lay ahead. I was grateful for the progress we had made, and I wanted to ensure we were ready for whatever challenges came our way. Reflecting on this journey, I wondered how to best foster a resilient partnership. What are some strategies to strengthen emotional intimacy and ensure we navigate future challenges effectively? Any advice on maintaining balance and growth as a couple would be incredibly helpful. As Maya and I settled into a comfortable rhythm in our relationship, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the growth we had experienced together. Our check-ins had become a cherished routine, and I looked forward to these moments of honesty and connection. They provided us both with a sense of security and a chance to celebrate our progress. One evening, during one of our check-ins, I brought up the idea of setting shared goals for our relationship. What if we think about what we want to achieve together in the next year? I suggested. It could be fun and a way to deepen our connection. Maya's eyes lit up at the suggestion. I love that idea. It would give us something to work towards and help us stay aligned. We brainstormed over dinner, jotting down our aspirations, traveling to a new destination, attending workshops together, and even volunteering for a cause we both cared about. It felt invigorating to envision our future as a team. As we made plans, I also emphasized the importance of maintaining our individual goals. While we're dreaming big, let's not forget to support each other's personal growth too, I said. Maya nodded in agreement, appreciating the balance we were striving for. The next month, we booked a weekend getaway to a nearby mountain resort. It was an opportunity to unplug and reconnect in nature. As we hiked through the trails, surrounded by breathtaking views, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It was moments like these that reinforced the beauty of our relationship, the laughter, the shared experiences, and the deepening intimacy. During the trip, I surprised Maya with a heartfelt gesture. I had written her a letter, expressing how much she meant to me and how grateful I was for the journey we had embarked on together. I handed it to her during a quiet moment on the balcony of our cabin, overlooking the sunset. As she read the letter, I watched her eyes fill with emotion. "This is so beautiful," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't express how much this means to me." In that moment, I realized the power of vulnerability and how it strengthened our bond. I wanted to continue fostering that emotional intimacy, knowing it was essential to our relationship's foundation. Back home, I made it a priority to incorporate more of these heartfelt moments into our daily lives. I started leaving little notes for her, planning surprise date nights, and even cooking her favorite meals more often. I wanted her to know that I cherished her and our connection. However, I was also aware that challenges would inevitably arise. I continued to practice the conflict resolution strategies I had researched, reminding myself that disagreements were a natural part of any relationship. I felt empowered to address issues openly and constructively, knowing that our commitment to communication would guide us through. As we moved forward, I also found myself reflecting on my past and the lessons I had learned. I was beginning to understand that healing was a journey, and while I still had moments of doubt, I no longer felt defined by my past mistakes. Instead, I felt empowered to create a new narrative, one filled with hope, love, and resilience. One evening, as we relaxed on the couch after a long day, I turned to Maya. "I can't believe how far we've come together. I feel like we're building something really special." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "I feel the same way. It's been an incredible journey, and I can't wait to see where it takes us." As I sat there, I felt a sense of optimism about our future. I knew that the road ahead might have its bumps, but I also felt confident that we had the tools to navigate whatever came our way. Reflecting on this journey of love and growth, I wondered about the best ways to keep the momentum going. What practices can we adopt to ensure we continue to strengthen our connection and navigate challenges together? Any advice on nurturing a resilient and fulfilling partnership would be greatly appreciated.